Neal Battaglia, saxstation.com.
Love the music. Love the people.
So there's a clip at the beginning of here. If you want to hear the rest of it, I'll put it at the end of the video. I was talking with Gio in La Yerba Ruda the other day. He's the lead guitar player. And he actually plays guitar pretty well. He sounds pretty good. He used to be really into metal. He has kind of an interesting sound. And he plays things, but he doesn't really necessarily think about the theory of what he's playing a lot of times. And that can be all right. You can learn things by ear. You don't necessarily know what chord it is or what scale it is or anything like that. But sometimes if you know how to play well and you know a little bit of theory, you can combine them and you'll be able to come up with different things, or you maybe realize certain things are easier than you thought they were. So one thing I want to talk about was actually the major scale and all the modes within the major scale. So you can start, let's say, a C major scale on the root note, which is C. And if you play it like that, it's a major scale. It has a certain sound to it. But if you started on the next note up on a D, and I am playing these on the soprano sax, so it's not concert, then it's going to be a minor scale, because between the first and the third note, you have a minor third. So that has a pretty different sound than the major scale. One's major, one's minor, and the note that defines whether it's major or minor is the third note of the scale. If you start on the third note, on the E, we use Greek names for the scales sometimes and the modes. So you could call a major scale the Ionian mode. So Ionian starts on the first note, then you got Dorian starting on the second note, then Phrygian, then Lydian, then Mixolydian, then Aeolian, and then Locrian. And actually the last one's not really used a lot. The other ones are a little bit more common. But all of these are theoretically possible, and they all have different sounds. The first one is major, some of them are minor. We have one on the dominant chord, which has a minor seventh, which is pretty common. Maybe you've heard of like a 2-5-1. Certain chords are connected to these scales. Basically, scales and chords are really the same thing. They just have different amounts of space. With a scale, you play one note and then the next note, and there's not very much space in between. With a chord, you basically skip notes, and you have more space between the notes in the chord. But if you went high enough up with enough chord extensions, you would have all the same notes as the scale that it's related to. So if you know the C major scale, that's just the note names with no flats or sharps. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, then back to C. That's the C major scale. If you start on D, again, you don't have any flats or sharps for the modes, so it's D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. So you can play just the notes of the C major scale, and you can play all these different modes, and it can be good to spend some time on them and kind of hear the difference of what they sound like. So hear the difference between a major and a minor, and you might kind of have it in your ear already, but you can also think about it and get a little more theory and maybe make some things easier when you're playing the music. So it's kind of like a knife. You might think that this is one thing, but if you open it up, you've got something here. You got something over here. You got something different over here. Basically, the C major scale is like that. You've got the one scale, which is major. You can also start it in different places, which gives you different sounds. So if you know one scale, which is the C major scale, no flats, no sharps, then you really have 7 modes. That scale is called a Phrygian dominant scale. Sometimes people call it like a Spanish scale. One way I think about it is that if you know the major scales, that allows you to modify them slightly and kind of build upon them. And you have access to a lot of different harmonic possibilities. You can think of the Phrygian dominant as being the fifth mode of the harmonic minor scale. So just like you can think about the modes of the major scale, you can also think about modes of like a harmonic minor scale or some other type of scale.